All right. Okay, so our speaker will now have the floor until about 7 p.m. I'd like to ask you to please help us welcome our speaker for this series. Going to be taking us through all 15 weeks of our big book study from the
Charlestown
Beach meeting in Charlestown, Rhode Island, John M. You can use this, you can sit, you can stand, whatever you want.
Do a little bit of both. I'm glad I had a home group actually to say. This is funny. A couple of years ago I didn't. I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is John.
Hey, John.
I earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book through and through. And though perhaps he came to scoff, he may remain to pray. William D. Silkworth, MD. What a powerful statement that is. It's one of the most powerful things from that, right? Because he's the doctor. He's giving credence to Alcoholics Anonymous back when they thought it was, a moral failing. You have alcoholism. You must be a bad person. He would stop if he really loved her, his wife, or she would stop if she really loved him, her husband, or they'd stop for their job. And what are we doing here? Human power, human power, human power. We read later on that no human power can relieve us of our alcoholism. We're not there yet. We're at the doctor's opinion, but what's the doctor say at that end statement? He may, perhaps he came to scoff, he may remain to pray, right? So, that's a big deal because you can read all throughout the doctor's opinion and Dr. Silkworth, or as my sponsor says, Silky, right? Have you said that before? Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
Silky.
He says it all throughout that the powers of good that lie outside of our synthetic knowledge. We read that tonight. Powers of good, like he's not even admitting to God. Obviously, he's going there. That's really what that is. Powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. Because my old sponsor, Tim C., used to say this from Tiverton, is that you're never going to fix the alcoholic with that broken mind. We got to get outside of that mind. The reality is the mind is the problem for the alcoholic. It brings me back to the thing that kills me. So even the medical profession, really, let's think about it. Let's just think logically. You think their mind is going to fix our mind? No. Right? We need a syringe that's this big that penetrates our heart and our soul. And they haven't come up with that yet. Antibuse doesn't do that. And no knocking on that. Listen, Alcoholics Anonymous just has a pathway of recovery that works for people. We read it tonight on the medical view. I feel like I'm not properly equipped to do this now because I don't think I've ever read that before. It's amazing. All right, I'm out. I'm just kidding. That's what my ego tells me. Is I'm not good enough. I don't think I'm qualified. Whatever. So I'm gonna leave. But what an amazing thing, though. Ultimately, I was blown away as I looked at you, right, Joe? When I looked, and I was like, it's so true. They reference the 50 to 60% rate. They talk about that in the forwards, I believe, right? And they imply that based on the number of books, how it hits circulation, and they say it outwardly in the forward to the second edition, which is, it's pretty amazing. It's when I do this and I give myself to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and ultimately I don't even realize it, I'm giving myself to God. Every single thought, being, fiber, that's that third step prayer. When I give that to the Lord, that's a covenant to God. We'll get into that when we get into the third step, right? But I don't even realize it at the time. It's just I don't want to drink. I got this problem. You guys have something that I want, ultimately, because I suffer from what the doctor's opinion is talking about. It was a revolutionary concept back in the day, in the 30s, etc., like I was getting to, a moral failing. No, it's not. It's actually an allergy. That soundness medically, we don't care about. That's essentially what they're saying. But think about it. It's I think about my own experience. once I put booze in my body, I have little control of the amount I take once I drink. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And for me, a lot of my experience was I get past and I shared about this actually the last time I was here when we did the recording, when I shared it was like the point of no return, right? I get past 2 or 3 and it's just like, there's no way I'm turning back. And that sets off the body allergy for me ultimately. And I'm drinking until blackout, until I can't even think anymore, and I'm passed out in my bed, or I'm in the South Kingstown Police Department with 4 charges on me, or I'm with her, did this, and I wake up one eye open. Who did I piss off last night? What text did I send? Back when I don't even know if there was a Messenger on Facebook, but like I would just go hard on people's walls and be like, "Hey girl, what's up? I ain't seen you in a while. Hey, we should meet up sometime," and just be like completely embarrassed. I have no recollection. I remember posting on Facebook before social media. I don't know why I'm talking about social media right now, but hey, it's whatever the Holy Ghost wants me to talk about. So I remember posting on social media being like, "Oh, I wish there was a breathalyzer on this thing, like, so I couldn't access this app." And so literally, I think it's still on my timeline. You can go on it. I don't really go on Facebook much anymore. And as a result of that phenomenon of craving, that body allergy that the doctor talks about, that like when you're in a blackout, in my experience, like I don't know what I'm doing. And that creates pain and misery and, like our book says, incomprehensible demoralizations, where I do that thing on Facebook, or I call up all my exes, 15 different exes, and be like, "Hey girl, what's going on?" Or like, I am just sloppily drunk at the end of the bar at the end of the night trying to get a straggler, or like just horrendous. No, just like, and I don't want to admit this. I hate to admit this, but this is the dark nature of alcoholism, ultimately, once I'm in that blackout state, because I don't like just drink kind of lightly. I don't just have like 6. Like I used to envy my friends who could have like 6 and then be like, all right, and they're still nice, or like 8 even, or even 10, and stop. Like, I don't know the amount I'm going to drink once I put that in my body. That's what Dr. Silkworth is talking about, with the body allergy or phenomenon of craving, right? Allergy. And it wasn't the mechanics of the big book and the allergy that got me in here. It was the resulting thing of like the despair, the utter demoralization, the all those things, the car crashes, all that. That doesn't make me an alcoholic, right? For Alcoholics Anonymous. But that's what brought me into Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, right? It was just like, I just don't know what's going on, what I'm doing in life. And, it's not a moral failing. It's like, and I look back on my own experience, because listen, in Alcoholics Anonymous, the only thing that matters is experience. I have to ask these considerations. Did I drink like this? Did I think like this? Did I feel like this? Is this me? So I need to ask myself as a consideration, do I have little control over the amount I drink once I put booze in my body? And listen, over the next 15 weeks, we're going to be pounding this home. Like, it's going to sound like a broken record. And that's what I say to my sponsees sometimes, like new guys that I work with. I'm like, listen, we're going to spend the first, whatever it is, this is getting recorded, so don't quote me on it, but we can go back and whatever. But it's like 50 pages, 55 pages of the phenomenon of craving and the body allergy, and we'll get into the mental obsession, right? And then the hopeless nature of that. Like, it's going to be pounded into my head. There's a lot of time in the book that's sent on this, not because we want to dwell on it, but we need to ask ourselves and qualify. In sales, I own my own business, but I've been in sales for like 20 years on and off, right? Is that it's called qualifying the prospect. I got to qualify myself. Because if I'm not the real deal, maybe I don't need Alcoholics Anonymous. That's shocking to say. If you said that in like a contemporary meeting, or my old sponsor used to say a middle-of-the-road meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, no shade on them. It's just like you might get kicked out. You might get some pushback. But the reality is that maybe I'm not a real alcoholic. My sponsor lineage and my previous sponsor lineage was really, really clear on that I gotta really identify with this. Is this me? Did I drink like this? Did I feel like this? Did I think like this? Right? Do I have this? Because maybe psychology will work then. Maybe it's not. Maybe a good recovery stint at, some sort of rehab will work where they look at your triggers and you can just remember when. For me, that never happened. I could never remember when. I always had this mental blank spot where I couldn't remember when, and then someone hands me a Heineken and I'm like, oh, I love Heineken. Let's drink this thing, right? And I don't think about the suffering and all the pain that I was in, even though I've been a month removed from alcohol. That doesn't even crowd my mind. Now, they don't really get in a lot into that, little bits and pieces here and there. And a lot of the core of Dr. Silkworth's proposition and his theory, right, is that phenomenon of craving. And what I can really relate to in the doctor's opinion, and I talk about it a lot, is that, and one of my old sponsors, Tim C, used to bring this up a lot too, is that I don't know Roman numerals, I should, but it's XXVIII. It's men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented, unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging ever remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. So, there's many names for this paragraph. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I call it the alcoholic death spiral. It's something that I literally can't get out of. I lived that paragraph for 9 years, I think, right? And I'll give you an example, and I'll break this down real quick. So, it's like, yeah, sure, alcohol's pretty bad for me. I can admit, obviously, I'm breaking into people's houses in a blackout, not maliciously, but I'm just trying to find out where to sleep. I'm almost drowning at night, in Block Island, or I'm getting into bar fights and getting concussions and I could lose my life, or I'm pissing people off at work or whatever. But yeah, I admit it is injurious, but I can't differentiate the truth from the false. It's I'll figure this out. I think I can get this. I think I can manage this. It's really not that bad. I'll be able to figure this out one day, I think. Until I stopped thinking like that after a while. And I was utterly hopeless. But it's a straight delusional thinking because you take away my binky, it's the only thing that I only feel calm and peace and ease when I'm in a blackout. Can you relate to that? That interior condition where the gear is grinding is gone. There's no fear of anything. It's just blackout nothingness. No fear, no resentments, no worrying about what I'm going to have for dinner and, whatever. It doesn't matter what the level of fear is. It's just not there anymore. And that's what I chase, whether willingly or unwillingly. So when you're threatened to take that away, and a lot of it for me was by force. It was when I was 18 or 19, we talked about it earlier, I went to 3 different high schools and I went down to Florida and basically I had to drop out. I went from an A and B student a year prior, 2 years prior to failing out and arrested and having to do some legal issues and having to go to a rehab and all that stuff. But I was still trying to grasp on, I can't tell the truth from the false. It's holding on. It's don't take that away. It's the only thing that has me deal with life. I can't deal with life sober. Sober, do you not understand that? To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. Yeah, I can justify it. All my friends drink like this. My boy Nick drinks like this. My boy whoever drinks like this. They all drink like this. Right? It's normal, Mom. Come on. A lot of these conversations were with my parents because I was a young alcoholic right when I started when I was 16. I had that body allergy, the phenomenon of craving. I would get straight up blackout drunk right when I was 16. The first drink I ever took. So I think at 16 now, my kids are like 5 and under. But like, they're going to be, 16, like James is, 10 years away from that. It's not that far off. And like, he's a baby. And like, I look at 16-year-olds now, that's a baby. So, like, of course my parents were concerned, but I'm rationalizing. We call it rationalization, right? It's like, well, it's normal, Mom. Come on, give me a break. Because you can't, the only solution in my life, it's the only thing that lets me breathe in and out effectively. It's the only thing that I can deal with life. It's like the natural elixir. It's the everything, all my problems are alleviated by it. That's how I felt when I was that age. That's how I felt, up until it stopped working. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, It is the solution. They are restless, irritable, and discontented. So like, I get separated from alcohol, right? It's like, I'll give my last stint or a couple stints ago. It's like, I get separated from alcohol. I'm living in my mother's shed in East Matunic, and I'm working as a busser, and just like, I'm drinking around the clock, except when I'm going into work on Federal Hill. And, it's, and the girlfriend at the time just left me. I was so depressed. I felt suicidal, and it wasn't just from that. It was just from drinking, and just like, I was living in my mother's shed. It was a beautiful shed, though. It was right on the water. See, my ego would justify anything to protect itself. I'll tell you how glorious that shed was. I was living in a shed. But, so I was driving over the bridge. It was like 3 nights in a row. My buddies from college, I went to school in New Hampshire. They came down, they rented a house in Middletown. And I was driving over the bridge like 3 nights in a row. The first night, I drove in a blackout over the Newport Bridge. And I remember going like 90, like one eye open, right? That kind of deal. Blacking in and out, like snapshots. And I'm like, I can't do that again. I could kill somebody. Never again. I did it the next night. I was going faster even. When I was getting the blackouts, going like 120 in my Audi. I had an Audi A4 at the time. And then the third night, I'm like, never again. I can never do it. And I did it again. These incomprehensible demoralizations, because I can't control the amount I take once I put booze in my body. I don't have a mild night. I'm in blackout, and I like, it's like, watch out. Crazy John's coming out. I don't know what's going to happen. So then I wake up in the morning, and my mom has AA pamphlets all around the table. She doesn't say a word to me. She just looks. She's like, how was your night last night? Okay, Mom, I get it. I cease fighting. I'm going to go back to Alcoholics Anonymous. At that point, I'd been in and out for at least 2 or 3 times. I don't know the count. Don't quote me on these accounts. I fluctuate. I have such a bad memory, and I just don't even bother to really think about it. But it was like probably 3 or 4 times at that time. And I was just out of college. I took a couple years off. It was around 2011, 2012. The dean was having a big book meeting, the AWOL meeting at the time, right? That's when I came back, and it was around that time, Dean. And yeah, maybe my 4th stint, might have been 5th stint, doesn't really matter. But so then I come back to AA, and I'm like, okay, like, I really want to do this. I started getting this will to like do it, and I'm listening to I'm at meetings and like stuff, and I'm like, this time's going to be different. I feel like this AA stint is going to be different. I'm going to pray. I'm going to do all these things. And then I pray a little bit, and I ask this guy to sponsor me, but then he doesn't call me back, and I get a resentment. And then like, I'm like, well, it was a precursor to online dating. Caveat, like I haven't met my wife at the time. Obviously, I'm single and all that. And it's like plentyoffish.com. And I'm at the meeting, and it was like the South Kingstown meeting in the office park. I think the 164 used to be there. They moved, right? And then they moved to another place after that. But like, I remember leaving there and I'm like, I gotta check my messages. And I'm like obsessing about it. I was like, what girl hit me up and this and that? And it's literally taking all of my mental power, and I stopped praying, and I'm restless, I'm irritable, and I'm discontented, just like that book says. Unless they can again experience a sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks they see others taking with impunity. So then, like, I'm spiritually unfit, okay? I'll tell you I'm praying. I'll tell you, yeah, I called the sponsor once or twice. He didn't pick up. The guy was really salt of the earth, too. This guy died, actually, of cancer, maybe 10 years back, 11 years back. He was a really good guy. And I think I was just delusional, quite honestly. I think, like, see, I can't differentiate the truth from the false. It doesn't matter if I'm a month separated from alcohol and drugs and Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm still mentally insane. I'll still make up stuff. The reality was he probably just, like, I think he probably called me back. I just didn't, like, check my messages because I never check messages, right? So, unless I can again experience a sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks they see others taking with impunity. So my friend Jackie's like, hey, Ticket Tuesday, why don't we go to Ocean Mist? And we got reggae night. I love reggae night. Reggae night was my favorite. I would walk from the shed at my mom's house along the beach, and I could get blackout. Well, I'd get blackout anyway, like 5 or 6 days a week, but I would say, this night I'm getting real effed up, man. I'm going to drive. I'm not going to drive. I'm going to leave the keys in the shed. I'm going to walk up from Whack-A-Mole Park and up the East Matunic Beach, up the stairs, and I'm going to go up the stairs and go to the Mist, and I'm going to listen to reggae. And but this time, obviously I was about a month or two sober at the time. So Jackie, and I'm like, I don't know if I should go. And she's like, no, come on, it's going to be fun. I'm like, okay. So I got my white windbreaker on. I'm feeling fresh. I think there's still a photo on FB with it. And I had this water, and I was like feeling the reggae, and I'm just like, DJ Blademon is spinning, and I'm just like, okay, I'm feeling it. And then what happened? I saw people drinking with impunity, taking these drinks. Why can Jackie drink like that? And I can't. I'm literally having this conversation in my head. Why can she drink like that and I can't? I'm not as bad as her. I'm spiritually unfit. I don't have a good reason to go. I'm trying to live take some vitality out of the scene to try to live the yesteryears, as the book says, or of the past, and try to steal something from it. And I'm just like, I'm literally in the death spiral now. That's why I call it the death spiral. And within 2 weeks, what happened? I'd succumb to the desire again. In Dean's AWOL meeting, we were getting to the 4th step. And I was like, oh, hell no. And that's literally around that same time span. It was like, had that experience at the Ocean Mist. And then I started smoking cigs again, and like anything to take me out. Plenty of Fish wasn't working, and just nothing was working. And then I remember it clear as day. It was 3 days before this event, and I was like, I'm gonna drink again. And then I was driving over the Newport Bridge, and I was by Heffy's, and I was going over the Jamestown Bridge, and I was going to the old Stone Mill meeting on Monday night. I think it was 7:00 at St. Joe's Church in Newport, Rhode Island, right on the corner of Man Ave and Broadway. I don't think that meeting exists anymore. I think they folded that. But I was going to that meeting, and I was like, I'm drinking. I went to that meeting. I was tapping my feet, couldn't wait till it lit, and I felt so much pain, I can't even describe it. And I'm sober about 2 to 3 months at the time. And I knew I was going to go to Aquidneck Liquors and drink. How you doing, John? How's everything going? Oh, everything's fine. Yeah, gotta get out of here. And I literally wanted to kill myself. I felt like I wouldn't have said that at the time, but looking back on it, that's kind of how I felt. And I go to Quidnick Liquors and I get a 12-pack, and I go back to my house on Oakwood Street and Drive or whatever in Middletown at this room I was renting, and I drank those beers like I'd been on a desert island and I had no water. I literally started chugging. I had been removed from alcohol for 3 months. Why did I do that? Seriously, because there's no phenomenon of craving. We're going to get to the mental obsession later on, but that's the mind. The mind convinces me, well, this is going to be good. Or like in that scenario, it was a justification. I have so much anxiety, I got to drink. I got to relieve this pain. So I succumbed to the desire again. What happened? I went through, the well-known stages of a spree, emerging ever remorseful. I'll never do that again. About 9 months later, I'm back in AA. Then I'm back to that cycle. I'm in that death spiral. Then I'm restless, irritable, discontented again, unless I can again experience. You see how that goes, and I live in that. I lived that for years. Now, this last time when I came back, God separated from me. God separated me from alcohol for hopefully the last time. But prior to that, I can give you experiences, many different experiences, where I came into Alcoholics Anonymous and I lived that, then I drink again, then I lived that. Restless, irritable, discontented. Why are they drinking like that? I want to drink like that. Nothing is helping me. The dating website isn't helping me. The job isn't helping me. The mom isn't helping me. The girl isn't helping me. Nothing's helping me. And then I succumb to the desire again. And then I drink again. And then I go through a spree. I piss that person off. I end up in the police station again. I get another charge. I didn't want to get arrested again. I told my mom that, I would never get arrested again. Then I got arrested. And then I'm back in AA. And then I'm restless here. Do you follow that? Yeah, like that was my life. Gosh, what a painful way to live life that is, right? It's a painful, painful way to live. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight, not kind of, it must. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves. If they are to recreate our lives, God does that for us. We get recreated. It talks about it in the third step, in the end of the promises. We were reborn. God does that for us. Frothy emotional appeal is, well, kind of what I talked about before. He'd stop for her if he really loved her. He'd stop for the job. Why can't he do it? He's going to all these meetings. Why can't he do it? Right? That's frothy emotional appeal. We need something with depth and weight. What has depth and weight? It's a power greater than myself. Only until I become open to that fact of the power greater than myself, that maybe there might be a power greater than myself that I can latch onto. The mustard seed of faith. That's all I need. I don't even need to believe. Guess what? I just have to be willing to believe. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to go over that, obviously, right? But like that has depth and weight. And then when I realize the ultimate reality to the third step, when I made that covenant with God, when I'm in the middle of the amends process and I see the face of God in these people that are forgiving me and loving me, and I feel like the prodigal son where God just welcomed me home even though I forfeited my inheritance. And he welcomes me back with open arms. John, come back. I just want a relationship with you. And then I get the ultimate reality then. I get the ultimate reality when that person that I harmed so bad that I feel like I can never go back to that person, and they welcome me with open arms, and I see the reflection of Christ in them. Then you'll realize that really has depth and weight. There's nothing on this planet that is more important than that. I hear it all the time. John, why do you talk about God so much? Why do you always, because frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. And I have been rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence, like this book says. We're coming up on the end here, but I want to touch on this. It's a really important fact of this book. We're going to be going through this. The underlying cause of the first step, the first 50 pages or so. Sure, phenomenon of craving. Once I start drinking, I can't control the amount I take. I have little control. Sure, I want to stay stopped after a brief period of sobriety, but something convinces me that maybe this time will be different. Mental obsession. But a key part that a lot of people miss is hopelessness. And it's all over the doctor's opinion. The doctor talks about Bill, Dr. Silkworth talks about Bill on XXV. In late 1934, I attended a patient who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, he was an alcoholic of a type I had come to regard as hopeless. Flipping all the way back to XXXI. About 1 year prior to his experience, a man was brought in to be treated for chronic alcoholism. He had but partially recovered from a gastric hemorrhage and seemed to be a case of pathological mental deterioration. He had lost everything worthwhile in life and was living, one might say, to drink. He frankly admitted and believed that for him there was what? No hope. We'll go down to the next case. When I need a mental uplift, I often think of another case brought in by a physician prominent in New York. The patient had made his own diagnosis and deciding his situation what? Hopeless. Had hidden in a deserted barn, determined to die. So we have these two cases right here that the doctor's sharing with us, right? No hope, hopeless. One has gastric hemorrhage. One is like, I'm going to go to this deserted barn and die, take a little bit of booze with me. We'll go out nicely. It's going to be a sweet time, right? I'm assuming that, but obviously they're hopeless. Excuse me. What happened in both these cases? The first case with the gastric hemorrhage. 1 year later, he called to me, and I experienced a very strange sensation. I knew the man by name and partly recognized his features. There, all resemblance ended. From a trembling, despairing, nervous wreck had emerged a man brimming over with self-reliance and contentment. I talked with him some time, but I was not able to bring myself that I had known him before. To me, he was a stranger. He was reborn, right? He's totally different. The doctor can't even see who he is. He doesn't even recognize him, only by features. Gastric hemorrhage, no hope. Now, 1 year later, freshly skinned and just brimming over with self-reliance and contentment. That's a medical view. Really, we know it's God reliance, right? He's got the fire in his belly. And he has this newfound creator and friend. He probably realized, I would assume, it's not so distant. And actually, this friend, this God, lies within me. And now he can live life successfully. Hopeless hope. The other one, right, he thought he would have no willpower. His alcoholic problem was so complex, his depression was so great that we felt his only hope would be through what we then called moral psychology. We doubted that would have any effect. However, he did become sold on the ideas contained in this book. He has not had a drink for a great many years. I see him now and then, and he is as fine a specimen of manhood as anyone could wish to meet. Sounds like he was inwardly changed. Sounds like his whole life was rearranged. Sounds like he was reborn. Sounds like it probably wasn't him that did that, right? Would you assume that? I would. Because he's hopeless, he has no hope. But here's the thing. The key to the first step is hopelessness. That's what we're going to go on for the next couple of weeks and talk about. Without hopelessness, and I can't put that in anybody that I'm working with. Gosh, I wish I could. But I can't do that. I believe that it's outside the scope of Alcoholics Anonymous, but what I believe is that that's a grace from God. Once I get that hopelessness, I'll do this work with everything that I have. I remember when I got that gift of desperation or that hopelessness within me, I remember it clear as day. I was like, I'll do anything you tell me to do. If you told me to do cartwheels, I would have done it, right? But the reality was my sponsor just wanted me to meet him I think it was Thursday night at 7 o'clock at his house off Man Ave, my first sponsor, and all he wanted to do was read this book. and bring me through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was willing to do it. I was finally willing, not like I did before with Dean and his AWOL group where it was the 4th step. I was finally willing to write, and I finally wrote. I was willing to not withhold anything on that inventory. I was willing to let God take all these defects from me, even though I didn't even understand God, but I was willing to reach out to this person because I was hopeless. I had no more road to run. Nothing was working. I'd been in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous from when I was 18 until I was 27, and I was done. And that's I would say when the magic happened, but no, it's not the magic. It was God's Holy Spirit that had a crack in my ego, and it got right into my heart. And at that point, I'm like, okay, now I'm willing. There was a crack where the sunlight of the Spirit could enter. I earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book through and through. And perhaps he came to scoff. He may remain to pray. Thank you so much.